I stay out the way, but if the beef do come around, I'll put an M right on your head, you Luigi brother now. Ha ha ha! Yeah, random J. Cole bar. That's who you kids need to be listening to. Listen, quick one today. We're going to just cover a couple of topics. And later tonight, obviously, quite obviously, if you don't know by now, you're not paying attention. Watch the Sixers versus Miami Heat with us on PlaybackTV, playback.tv/RunItBackPhilly. Let's get into the business.
Run it back, Philly. No fraud, no fanboys, no intros.
All right, so today, Doc Rivers went on, or yesterday, Doc Rivers went on KJM. I don't actually know what that is. I don't watch TV. But I just found this interesting, and I want your opinion on it. I'll give you my opinion on it. I want your opinion on it, okay? Yesterday, Doc Rivers went on KJM, which is Kellerman, J. Will, Michael Irvin, I think it is. I think I got that right. All right, but anyway, let me make sure I got this unmuted. Hold on one second here. Boom, I got the new mixer. I'm still learning how to use it. All right, here we go. Here's what Doc Rivers said when Max Kellerman asked him if he's going to play all bench lineups in the playoffs. And yeah, I'll just play it and then I'll give you my thoughts on it.
On this show, that you played an all-bench unit in the playoffs, where usually coaches will shorten their rotations in the past. And Ben Simmons took a lot of heat in that series, and so did you in the aftermath, certainly locally. Is that something you would do again in these playoffs, or do you think that's something you can't do, play an all-bench unit in the playoffs? Do you need to shorten the rotation?
Well, it really depends on your team. It really does. Everyone has different teams. You know, I did the same thing with the Boston Celtics, and we won a title and got to the finals. So it all depends on the type of team that you have.
On this show.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. He's right. It depends on the team. The Sixers right now, especially in the past couple of games, they've been actually looking better when there's an all-bench lineup on the floor. Maybe not all bench lineup. I maybe not. They've been looking better when there's James Harden with some rim running athletic players. So they've been looking better when there's certain players on the floor versus starters, because I think still the Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker combo in the starting lineup is not great. So he's right. It does matter who the players are and what team it is. I remember his first year here, we thought it was a joke. We were like, okay, he's getting these all-bench lineups out of his system, and he's not going to do that in the playoffs. And in the playoffs, he went all-bench lineup, and Max is right. He caught heat for it in that Atlanta Hawks series, as he should have. And I like that he said, certainly locally. Everybody in Philly hates you. But the part that I dislike is reverting back to winning a title 15 years ago. You know, this is the reason this guy is as stubborn as he is. This is the reason he was as stubborn with his decision-making on Ben Simmons, his decision-making initially on the Paul Reed situation last year, and then going back to DeAndre Jordan. This is the reason he wouldn't change it up when he was in LA and he was playing Montrezl Harrell in the playoffs against Nikola Jokic, and everybody knew Zubac was the better player for that matchup, but he refused to go against what he thought was right. This is the same reason, you know, Shake Milton and Tyrese Maxey were productive in that Atlanta Hawks series, and in Game 7 he went with the veteran George Hill, who hardly even played for the Sixers that entire year. This is the reason why he played Furkan Korkmaz for 3 months before the city, you know, basically threatened to burn down the stadium if he doesn't stop doing it. This is the reason he's still playing George Niang a large amount of minutes when clearly Jalen McDaniels, Daniel House Jr., and other players who are athletic and can actually play defense and do some things on the other end of the floor are better in certain matchups. The reason Doc Rivers is so damn hard-headed, and the reason he never ventures from his idea, the reason he doesn't listen to anybody, is because He always goes back to winning a championship in 2008 with the Boston Celtics. Remember the press conference where he sat up there and said, "Would you ask Pop that question?" He actually thinks because he won one championship in 2008 with 4 Hall of Famers on the team that he is a legendary coach and everything that he does is the right way and everybody else is wrong. He actually thinks that. Now, if Doc Rivers plays some all bench lineups in the playoffs with this Sixers team, I don't know. You know, the lineup with James Harden, Jalen McDaniels, Daniel House Jr., Shake Milton, Paul Reed. That lineup in the past couple of games was great. That lineup in certain games was better production-wise than the entire starting lineup. But then after that worked, he replaced Daniel House Jr. in the past 2 games. Big matchups. Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics. He replaced Daniel House Jr. with George Niang in those bench lineups, in those James Harden with 4 bench players lineups. He replaced Daniel House Jr. with George Niang. And George Niang gets absolutely obliterated on the defensive side of the floor every single time Doc Rivers does that. So I'll say this. If Doc Rivers plays a 90%, what would the percentage be? 4 out of 5. I don't know. 70, 80%, 80%. If Doc Rivers plays an 80% all bench lineup, but makes sure he has James Harden on the floor, that works in the playoff. That works in games, and that could work in the playoffs. But it has to be James Harden. It can't be an all bench lineup. If Doc Rivers plays that lineup with George Niang instead of Daniel House Jr., we are smoked. We're done for. We're done for. If he plays that lineup. If he plays George Niang, the amount of minutes he's been playing him in the last couple of games in the playoffs, we're done. But he also has to make sure he has at least James Harden or Joel Embiid on the floor at all times. I think he's done a decent job at doing that in certain matchups throughout the season. But then he does get into these situations where he doesn't stagger those 2 players and he goes with an all-bench lineup. There's not enough point guards on this team to run an all-bench lineup. There's James Harden. There's Tyrese Maxey. If he's even really a point guard, I still think he's a 2 guard. Then you got Shake Milton, which sometimes he's productive. Sometimes he can run the pick and roll. Sometimes he's not productive. Sometimes Doc plays him for 20 minutes. Sometimes Doc doesn't play him at all. I think Doc Rivers overthinks matchups. I think he tries to get too strategic. And it turns out to be too inconsistent. I don't know, man. I don't know. You got. I think playing an all bench lineup in the playoffs would be a disaster. But I also just wanted to play this video in this little clip and give my opinion on it because the fact that Doc Rivers always reverts to I won a championship in 2008 with the Boston Celtics tells me that he's never, ever, ever going to change his mind on any decisions that he wants to make because he thinks it will still work now because it worked in 2008 with the Boston Celtics, even though in 2009 it worked against you. He's going to have a game plan. He's going to have an idea. He's never going to make an in-game adjustment. He's not even going to make an in-series adjustment because of his own ego. That's what I think about that. Y'all give me your thoughts in the comments. Watch Sixers Miami Heat with us tonight. I'm up out of here. Peace.